Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan, and I have a very special guest in the house today. We have the privilege and the honor of having Paul Carr on the show today. He's the director of content for TrueMedia Sports, host of the Expected Value podcast, and even I'm wondering what expected value is going to be, but I'm sure he's going to tell us. And he's formerly of ESPN Stats and Info. He's a number and history lover, and very impressively, he's a graduate from Wheaton, Illinois. Welcome to the show, Paul, and really thank you. Big shout out to you and your followers. It's great having you on the show.
No, thank you. Always happy to talk sports, talk soccer, talk some betting, and away we go.
Yeah, well, speaking of betting, before we get to the soccer, which is clearly your expertise, there is that thing called the NFL draft coming up Thursday, and I have had a few conversations with some of the experts that you know about what my bet is. My bet is betting under 17.5 offensive linemen, or not offensive linemen, offensive players. That would be a lot.
Yeah, I take the under on that.
Right. Offensive players in the first round, and I'm betting under. One of the reasons was Philly traded down, which I think means they are not going to take a wide receiver and maybe a cornerback. But I know you're a Dolphins fan, and they're number 6 in the draft and have a lot to do with whether I win or lose this bet, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I admittedly haven't studied this closely. I follow the draft more from a fan standpoint. So I mean, we're assuming we're getting 3 quarterbacks in the top 3. 4 and 5 are probably offensive players, and 6 probably is too. I mean, if as a Dolphins fan, I would love to see Jamar Chase drop to them. I would be pretty happy with Kyle Pitts. Devontae Smith, I think I'd be okay with, although I saw like his over-under draft slot is like 11.5, which makes me a little
me too
wary of that. Just the fact, people were saying he might be a top 5 pick for so long, and now it's dropping a little. So I don't know. That makes me a little wary. Again, this is coming from a fan perspective. So if they get Chase or Pitts, I'm going to be very happy. If it's somebody else, I don't know. There's talk they may trade down and take Waddle later. I don't know. I would lean, again, this is my amateur analysis, I would lean over on 17 offensive players. Just doing the quick, like if we get 6 quarterbacks, we get 6 receivers, we get 6 offensive linemen, like we're there.
You're right there, probably in the first half of that round too.
Yeah. If you take the under, you're going to be sweating the whole second half of the draft because we're going to have probably 10 of the top 15, give or take.
Yep.
I can see the case. I feel generally the league is just shifting so offensively, and from what I've read, it's a pretty weak kind of lineman class on the defensive side. I would lean toward the over, but again, this is my knee-jerk analysis to that. But either way, It's going to be a fun draft.
It is. It's definitely going to be one that's going to be worth watching. I think there could be some fireworks yet to take place that we're not aware of. And really, when it comes to the NFL draft, we're all amateurs because, and as a fan, you have to trust. If they take somebody that, oh my goodness, who's this guy? Right. You have to trust that their expertise is going to make you happy during the regular season. It is just one player, but Trevor Lawrence is a pretty big player for Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think they're going to trade that pick away.
No, I think that's your safest bet. I don't remember what the last number I saw at him was. It was like minus 2,500 or something like that.
It's a lot of wood, that's for sure, and something I would never think to do in a million years. That's for sure.
Yeah, not worth the craziness of. Well, remember what was it? Reggie Bush was the number 1 pick forever until he wasn't, and Mario Williams like the night before. I want to say Chris Mortensen broke that, and everyone's like, "What?" So you never know.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy.
Quarterback's a little bit different, I think, especially now.
Especially for Jacksonville. I mean, they're definitely a team on the rise, as are the Dolphins. Every single team in Florida is good.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good time after some lean years over the previous decade or so.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I have a hunch that you want to get to the soccer, especially over there in Europe, and give us a rundown of what's going on there. I saw, and full transparency, full disclosure, I am nowhere close to the knowledge that Paul has in soccer. So I defer to him on everything that we're going to be talking about going forward. But I do believe the Champions League was a really strange, high-impacting event where they just kind of like disappeared, just like dissolved.
Yeah, they tried that. So this was all last week over the course of about 48 hours from Sunday to Tuesday. The top teams in Europe, the top dozen teams or so, said they were formally announced with a website and a release and everything, that they were going to have a breakaway league called the Super League. And this would be those 12 teams playing their own games just against each other. And basically so they can keep all the money from, TV rights and all the advertising, all that stuff themselves. So this is basically equivalent of, I'll compare it to college basketball. If Kansas and Duke and Carolina and Kentucky and UCLA and all the blue bloods,
right,
so to speak, decided, hey, we're going to have our own NCAA tournament. We are the only ones invited every year. We are going to keep all the money so we don't have to share it with other teams in our conference, things like that. So it would be like if that happened and those teams said they were still going to compete in the regular season, the conference season, the regular NCAA tournament. So the fans were so outraged, especially in England, by this, because there's just these roots of, these clubs are over 100 years old. They were started by, the local railway workers union or whatever it was in a lot of these cases. So they were so outraged by this concept of greed and everything just highlighted to that magnitude that most of the English teams backed out first and the whole thing fell apart. And part of that was UEFA, which oversees European soccer, threatening to, hey, if this happens, we are going to kick the 3 of the 4 remaining Champions League semifinalists out. Like, we'll just shut down the competition for this year, or maybe they'll bring teams back that were eliminated. We didn't get into the weeds and the details like that. But there was that threat that was at least out there. How serious it was, who knows? But it was out there that, we'll kill this off for the year or rejigger it and throw the semifinalists out, something along those lines. So that was all part of it. Blah, blah, blah. Super League's not happening. I'm sure in 2 or 3 years they will try again, because that's how it's gone for the last 20 or 30 years in European soccer. It bubbles up. Hey, here's a plan. This was by far the deepest that it had actually gone as far as happening. There had never been a formal announcement or anything like that, or concrete teams. It was always just leaks here and there before. So nothing's happening. Yeah, all the drama over 2 days. It's status quo. Champions League semifinals are tomorrow. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of drama. It was just fun to follow on social media and see all the outrage and the craziness. So it was great content from a media perspective. But ultimately, status quo, semis are tomorrow. So we're ready to have some fun there.
So speaking of the semifinals, who are the 4 teams that are left? And, obviously, who do you think is going to come away with I guess it would be a pretty big trophy for this event.
Yep. Yeah. So we've got 2 legs. The first leg is tomorrow. The second leg is next week. Aggregate score between the 2 teams. Aggregate winner advances. So I've got some picks over on ESPN that you can check out on Twitter and follow that link to read some of those. But talking through some. So your one matchup is Real Madrid against Chelsea. And your other matchup is Manchester City against PSG. So PSG is... I'll start with the PSG Man City game because it's interesting, because PSG is the best team in France, although they haven't really played like it this year. They're really struggling in the French league. They're actually still in first place, but they've been running away with the league and they just got back into first. But in the Champions League, they've eliminated Barcelona, who is probably the 3rd, 4th best team in Europe. They eliminated Bayern Munich, who was probably the 1st or 2nd best team in Europe. And now they have Man City. So they've been playing this weird thing where they haven't been that good in league play, but they've been good enough in Champions League. Maybe they're getting lucky with some finishing, but they've played well when they've had to. And Man City is the best team in Europe right now, I think it's safe to say. So I don't know how you bet against Man City. I know they could obviously struggle. PSG has a ton of talent, so they have a very high ceiling, but they haven't played anywhere near that ceiling for the most part. So I like Man City in this matchup in the series, and that's the way I would go. I just feel like it's a much safer pick. Like, there's a real chance City just destroys PSG. I don't see that as a possibility the other way.
Now, for beginning bettors, if you don't mind, I thought maybe this would be a good thing to hear from you, because it is totally different betting than anything else. There's draws, there's all sorts of things. Can you step us through one of the games of how you would take a beginning bettor to the window and what they need to do?
Yeah. So, there's 2 basic ways to bet on soccer. There's obviously tons of options and props and all that stuff, but the 2 basic ways: you can bet on the goal line, which is, just like you're familiar with betting for baseball or hockey or frankly, the NFL or basketball. Your lines are obviously much smaller because, rarely is a team favored. You'll get super extreme situations where it's like first place Man City against the worst team in the Premier League. 2.5 might be the default number. That's about as high as it will usually get. But you're betting, half a goal. It's usually half a goal, 1 goal, 1.5. So you can bet on the goal line, which is just like anything else. Obviously, if it's an integer, you have a big chance of pushing. So you got to factor that in. So you can bet on the goal line. That's your one way of doing it. The other way is the three-way. So your three-way is you're betting one of three results in the game. You're betting the win, you're betting the draw, you're betting the other team to win. And so those are your two basic options. It can be different. You can usually find alternate lines. If they're favored by half a goal, maybe you'll find it where they're favored by a whole goal, and you obviously get a better price on that. Or maybe it's a goal and a half. You can play almost any line at most places. So you have a default line, and that default line is rarely kind of your standard NFL where it's minus 110 on both sides. Like that's not usually the case, just because games are just not created equally, and you have such a small margin for where you can set that line that they usually use the juice one way or the other to balance that out. So yeah, you have those are your two basic options. You're rarely seeing minus 110 on both sides of things. Rarely, might be overstating it. And I guess you have the over under as well. 2.5 is kind of your default over under, and you go from there. Expected low scoring games will be at 2 sometimes. You'll get up to 3 or 3.5 for the high scoring affairs. So that's kind of your 2-minute intro to soccer betting. There's a lot more to it than that. And I'm still learning as well, but those are your basics.
That's really good. Now in the sports that like NFL, sentiment is something that is a big factor in my models. It's also a big factor in my analysis, just visually. Do you find any correlations with sentiment? In other words, getting too bullish on a team, the public's betting Real Madrid out of irrational exuberance, and it presents a contrarian opportunity?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I would say I'll use England as the example for this. You have public teams. It's, broadly speaking, it's your big 4 to 6 teams in England. It's your Manchester Uniteds, your Arsenals, your Liverpools, the teams that have, just like the Cowboys or whatever, Green Bay Packers in the US. It's the same thing over there. So yeah, when there's value, it's often on the underdogs in those games. So they're playing, we'll call Brighton or somebody who, the name means very little to the average soccer fan in the US. But Brighton is a team that has played well. And even though they're toward the bottom of the table, their underlying numbers have looked good and things like this. And so you can usually get a decent price on something like that. So that's where the opportunities will arise. And then if you're looking at futures, it's kind of the same sort of thing, where just like the Cubs always have the lowest odds to win the division or the NL when the Dodgers aren't, going to win 120 games. Same sort of thing with your odds on those top teams to win, are usually priced about right. But if anything, they will fade toward, you lose value as you look at the top teams. So that's kind of the gist of it. You have public teams. It's the popular teams that you've heard of. So you can sometimes find the value by looking to bet against them, especially when a smaller team is the opponent.
That's terrific. I'm going to share the screen here. This is BetMGM's The Odds. I just wanted to give any first-time bettors out there in soccer a shot at this. And let's see here. So now, hopefully everybody can see it. I'll enlarge it here quick. So now we do have like the live line here. Now the 3 possible outcome betting opportunity you were detailing is actually this right here, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we're looking at there. That's Real Madrid, Chelsea. That's tomorrow's game. So Real Madrid plus 130 to win. The draw is plus 220, and Chelsea would be plus 230 win. Then you've got the over under to the right of that. So yeah, so that's how you usually see it laid out like that. We're your home team. It's a little different than, this will vary admittedly by betting sites sometimes, but broadly speaking, your home team is listed first for soccer, especially European soccer. So, but I always encourage, there's a couple sites that don't do it like that. They do it the American way, or sometimes they'll also just put, Chelsea at Real Madrid and make it very clear. So make sure you know what you're getting in that sense as far as who's at home, because those make a difference as well.
So by logic here, Real Madrid would be the plus 130.
Right.
And they're they're the better team.
Yeah, I'd say
Chelsea.
Yeah, it's pretty even. I think like the odds to advance, I think Real Madrid is a slight favorite. This one is in Madrid, so that's the reason that they have a pretty decent edge there. And so if you look at the game below it, that game is in Paris, PSG, but Man City is the significantly better team, so they have the plus 115 to win, which has been drifting down. That was plus, I would say I got it at plus 125, plus 130 a day or two ago. So these games always, the Champions League games in particular, they tend to shift quite a bit the day of, because I think a lot of bettors, they're getting through the European weekend, which ends Sunday, and there's even games today, and then their attention shifts, and that's when you see the numbers start to change a decent amount. Or if I look at, it's like the Real Madrid Chelsea under is minus 165 there. So I took that last week at minus one. I think it was minus 135, minus 140.
Awesome.
And it was minus 150 at one place yesterday. So obviously, if you can, you shop around. But yeah, these things shift in Champions League more than regular league games. They shift a lot in the build up to the game itself.
Yeah, looking at the total too, it looks like Manchester City is going to score enough offense too to win and go over 2.5 is what that is telling me.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And some places will let you parlay things like that, and those can work out pretty well. Some places don't. So that's kind of a know the rules of your book situation. So yeah, City is high scoring. PSG tends to be higher scoring. So you got to pay a lot of juice to take the over. Whereas the other game, Chelsea. So this is my favorite stat, and it's been very profitable. So Chelsea changed managers in January. They got in Thomas Tuchel, much more defensive oriented. Since then, they have played, if I remember correctly, 21 games. And 18 of them have had 2 or fewer goals.
Wow.
And, the underlying numbers suggest that's a little bit fortunate. Like there probably should have been 2 or 3 more that went over. But Chelsea has just locked it down defensively. They're allowing fewer shots. They're holding on to the ball a little bit more. So I think I've played like 15 of those or something in that span. Maybe it's a few more. I don't recall off the top of my head, but that's one of my plays is like play the under. Real Madrid's not a super high scoring team this season compared to how they've been in the past, but I like the minus under 2.5. Minus 165 is getting a little bit steep, but you're still talking, is this game going to finish under 70% of the time or so? I think so. I think it's still playable at this point.
That's incredibly interesting because there's only a couple outcomes: 1-0. 1-1,
yep.
2. No, not even 2-1, 2-0.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind for these games specifically, these are the first of 2 legs. So teams tend, broadly speaking, to play a little bit conservative in that first leg. It's the old, you hear the cliche in a lot of sports, like you can't lose in the first quarter, or you can't win in the first quarter, but you can lose it. Kind of the same thing applies here. Both these teams, I think, will just keep it kind of close to the vest. We're going to be tight defensively. We're going to try to steal a goal. Either team would be pretty happy if they got away with a 1-0 win going to the second leg in London next week. So yeah, I see a 1-0 type of game is extremely realistic either way.
Yeah, I would think so too, based on what you said. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now with the draw, again, this is I'm coming from the beginning soccer fan view.
Yeah.
So with the draw, we're used to semifinal games having a winner no matter what, and it goes 17 overtimes if necessary to get to the championship game.
Yep.
So if this ends in a draw, what happens next?
Yeah. So again, this is the first leg, no matter what. So they're playing again, at the opposite venue next week. So yeah. So if it's a draw, you just head back to the other game and you're even. You can almost look at it like this is the first half of a series that goes 180 minutes instead of 90 minutes like a traditional game. So yeah, the draw is it's a normal thing. It gets weird. Betting second legs like this is weird. It's like last time, let's see. So PSG beat Bayern and they were ahead by 2 goals. No, I've lost the track already. Bottom line is Bayern won the second leg but did not win the series. So you could I bet Bayern to win the second leg. They won it 1-0. But they lost on aggregate score because PSG had the tiebreaker, which is away goals. So that does get tricky. Like you can bet on the team to win, they do win, and they're also eliminated, which is what happened last week.
Yeah.
So the second legs do require a little bit of warped logic. You got to wrap your head around it. And then I'll add one other thing because this tripped me up when I started betting soccer. Almost every bet you make, this is more applicable to second legs or cup finals that can go to that extra time that you talked about. Almost every bet you make is for 90 minutes. So that's regulation. It's basically for regulation. It does include that added time, the injury time they put on at the end, but almost every bet you make is that 90 minutes. So you make the bet, the game doesn't technically end, but regulation ends and your bet is over one way or the other, and then they go play extra time. So those second legs especially, just got to know what you're betting. I've gotten myself where I bet one thing and was cheering for the wrong thing. Then you realize I did win or I did lose and I thought I won. You can also bet on like 2 advance or 2 qualify is usually what it's called. And those are, but again, it's just knowing what you're betting. It's like you could bet right now on Man City to advance which is last I saw was like minus 175. But that would be over the 2 legs, and that bet would not pay out today either way. So you just, again, know what you're looking for, and that those numbers obviously change as goals are scored in this game, and this game comes to an end.
I just hit the drop down menu here, and what is, just out of curiosity, we won't go through all of these, but the double chance.
So let's click on it and make sure it's what I think it is. So
Change
the terminology. Yes. Yeah, so let's see here. Yes. So usually it's betting 2 of the lines. It's let me see.
I got you.
Yes, you're betting like to win or draw sort of thing, and it rolls it together in that sense. It's also in Europe where it's called draw no bet, which I think is, which is usually what you call it there. So if you want, you obviously you'll usually lay a lot of juice either way, but it gets you a couple outcomes. It can be a good thing if you have a significant underdog. It can be worth playing sometimes. You're basically you're almost just playing minus half a goal or something like that, or plus half a goal rather.
That's great. Yeah, it's an exciting way because it gives you so many options to bet what is a low scoring sport. And the NBA where it's 130 to 125. It's just a different realm.
The frustrating part of it is, like, I'm sure if you bet hockey or baseball, you're aware of this. It's so low scoring that there can be higher variance. So one penalty call just changes the game. I can look at the Real Madrid Atalanta round of 16 game, which is the first leg. I had Atalanta in that, and Atalanta got a red card in the 15th minute or something like that. And like, you're pretty much just done. Like, Madrid's gonna. I think I had Atalanta plus half a goal, or maybe it was to win. I don't recall off the top of my head, but they get a red card. Pretty much randomly. It was a deserved red card, just meaning that you can't predict that. It just happens, and the game has changed. And you're just like, well, okay, did you make a bad bet? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But you're just kind of out of luck. Or a ball takes a funny deflection and goes in the net, or someone draws a penalty and converts it. And there's so many random things that can change the outcome drastically and shift the game state one way or the other, that there's just a lot of high variance. Or just teams don't finish shots. They can create all the chances. There was a Man City game last week. They were playing Leeds. They outshot Leeds 29-2, and they lost 2-1. What can you do? I think I've had Man City to win that game, or maybe it was plus or minus a goal and a half. I don't recall. But was it the wrong bet? I don't think so. If they play that game 10 times, like City's covering or at least winning, 9 of them probably. So it's a high variance that's, like you said, in basketball, that kind of tends to even out over the course of the game. There's obviously still some luck, especially when it comes down to the end. But yeah, soccer it's a little crazier because one little thing can change a game so much.
Yeah, that's reminds me of an NHL game. I think it involved Detroit.
Yep.
Where they had, I know the one team was outshot by a margin of probably 15 in the first period, and the team was losing.
Yep.
2 shots on goal, was 1-0, and the other team had 17. So, you're right. Those things you can't predict.
Yep.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get rid of this screen here now. Now I know, I'm kind of transitioning here, unless you want to, I don't want to pick your brain for free picks on the semifinal games here, but if you want to offer one up, that would be fine. If not, I fully respect that.
I think the under is my best play. You're paying juice. Like I said, I got it at minus 140, I believe. It's minus 165 now. But obviously this could go over. It could happen, whatever. But you just look at like what is the most likely, what's going to happen. That 2/3 to 70% of the time that you need to make this a profitable bet. And I just don't see them getting, like, neither of these teams is going to just open it up offensively and turn this game into a track meet. That's not going to happen. So, barring an extreme number of red cards or something, or everyone just finishes every single shot, it's just not going to be a high scoring affair. So just by far the most likely thing is it's going under here.
And then if the game ends in a draw, or the second one ends in a draw, then it carries over. So it's cumulative, but they use a different word. But
aggregate. Yep.
Aggregate. Yep. Yeah, and you have to be careful on that the following week. And I can see how beginning bettors would stumble and.
Yep.
Wait a minute, I won. No, you didn't.
Right. Yeah, know what you're betting. That's especially for cup finals and second legs. That's the key to make sure you pay attention to what you got.
Very true. Now, anything, I know you work at TrueMedia now and doing a lot of great advanced analytical stuff and that's only the tip of the iceberg, but anything you want to share with us about what is going on over there?
Yeah, so TrueMedia, I mean, what we do is we work with media outlets, we work with teams. So we have, clients include ESPN and CBS and Fox and about 20 MLB teams and the entire NFL and all their teams and 80 soccer teams. So it's sort of the same thing for all these clients. We take all their information and make it easy to use on a website. So, you don't have to have a programming background to be able to pull out the data, or you don't have to be able to code anything. All you have to do is be able to use a website that has filters and things like that to be able to find, okay, look where Max Scherzer is throwing his first pitch, and look how often it's a fastball. Look where he throws it against lefties. Look where he throws it against righties. Why is Corbin Burns so much better this year? Well, look at how his horizontal break has changed on his cutter, or whatever it is. So it makes it super easy to research stuff like that. For teams, it's a lot of, all right, we're facing this starting pitcher today. Let's see what he throws, or where he throws it, or how he attacks. So they can, you can pull up your own sorts of heat maps, tables, whatever data you want. But we're basically just pulling everything in, so we can combine, regular MLB or NFL feeds with teams' internal tracking stuff or analytics and the StatCast data or NGS data. So we pull everything together and make it easy to use both on the media side and the team side. So yes, there's analytics involved that we're doing ourselves, that other teams are doing. There's betting involved. Media outlets in particular can pull in the betting. It just makes it easy to find stuff. Who's got the longest streak of covering? Simple things like the best record against the spread at home, or over unders hitting, or whatever it is, against a certain coach, with a certain coach, starting quarterback, stuff like that. So it just makes it easy to find information, kind of whatever your purpose is in using it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was wondering too, like we talked about the NFL draft, maybe there's a tool, maybe you guys even have it, but maybe it's down the road where a general manager will use machine learning to try to draft a player that not is necessarily the best available, but the one that is going to fit and optimize the group that's already in place. Do you see that down the road? I
mean, we've seen some of it now. I think of Cynthia Freeland over at NFL Network does some work on this, where I can't guarantee it's machine learning, but I feel like that's right, where it's kind of, all right, what does this team need? And adding, this piece to that team, how will it affect them? Things along those lines. And, they need a receiver. They need a receiver who has vertical speed, or whatever it is, and things like that. So yeah, I think it's happening there. There's an article on ESPN by Cameron Wolf today about different just teams' draft processes. Let's talk about the Ravens and how much they're trying to kind of fill in that gap that you're talking about, trying to figure out how player A fits into system B and things like that, and using numbers and analytics to do that. So yeah, I don't know that anyone's solving it, but there's definitely teams, I don't know if most teams is fair, but it might be, that are trying to, just fill in that gap. They're not necessarily using it instead of scouting. They're using it to complement scouting, especially a year like this, where you have different numbers of games played. Jamar Chase hasn't played a game in a year, stuff like that, where you're just trying to get all the pieces to fit together in not a perfect way, but a better way, and make everyone better at what they're doing.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. It comes to mind like the Eagles Super Bowl year, Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz got injured. Foles comes in.
Yep.
On paper, I think there's no doubt that nobody would disagree with us that Wentz was the more talented, more athletic, whatever quarterback.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, the chemistry just soared. And that's where I really would be intrigued whether the machine learning can actually lead a couple of general managers down the right path. I mean, they may get blasted by their fan base when they pick a player that isn't a popular choice, but then maybe 3 years down the road, they'll be having a parade.
Yep.
I often remember in baseball too. I would have been the most unpopular general manager in the world, because if I would have had an MVP, that's when you trade them. In hindsight, and that would be the most craziest thing to do in the world. But the value you would get in return, it's not a very human thing to do either. When the guy wins the MVP and you would trade him. So I'm not saying I would actually do that, but mathematically it makes sense.
I mean, it reminds me, there's, it's the theory out there kind of in football analytics Twitter that what if you draft a quarterback and you basically intend to trade him before his rookie deal is over, and then you use that haul to draft another quarterback, and just kind of work on, you always have a quarterback on the rookie deal, because that's obviously helping you in a huge way against the cap. And so there's people advocating Rams trade Jared Goff a year or two ago when he had more value probably, and you draft someone else and plug him in. So it's an interesting theory, and I can definitely see the kind of practical way it would help you. You keep your quarterback cap hit low and things like that. As you said, though, like that's from a fan standpoint, that's kind of no fun. You want to buy that quarterback jersey and wear it for 15 years. I grew up a Dolphins fan.
Right.
I got this Dan Marino jersey, and I was able to wear it until I was in college. And that's what everyone kind of wants to do. I live in Kansas. People are huge Chiefs fans. They're super excited that Mahomes signed a 10-year deal. They can, again, buy the stuff and enjoy him for pretty much his whole career. So yeah, it would be hard from an emotional standpoint. And that's ignoring the human part of it, where, trying to interact, coaches and players interact together. And if this is how a team operates, how is a rookie going to handle things? That's a more complex thing than I can handle. So yeah, it'd be a great theory. It'd be really hard to put it into practice. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. That's more the scouting of not discounting the player's talents, but the background.
Mm-hmm.
Not a background check, but just the background. What kind of character? What type of leader is he?
Right.
Because you can have like multiple types of leaders too. We see that in the corporate world.
Yep.
There's lead by example. There's lead by aggression.
Yep.
So it's all fascinating to me. It really is.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else you want to add for our first show? Because I hope this is the first of about 500. Because me with the machine learning, the data, and your description of the databases you guys have in place is like heaven for me to listen to. And if I got involved with that, I probably wouldn't sleep for the next week. But that would just be my world.
I had a coach on the baseball side tell us last year, his wife was mad at him because he was using the TruMedia site too much. So that's our goal. Not to ruin marriages, but to become that integral to people, of course.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Paul, thanks for being on the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Learned a ton about the soccer stuff too. So I'm going to be definitely more interested to watch those games if I have time, which I'll make time for. So for Paul, myself, and the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.